Here with the man, the myth, the legend, needs no introduction. He's got a lot of nicknames. One is Baba Yaga.
Baba Yaga,
Uh,
that's right.
that is
Do you remember who Baba Yaga is, though, by the way?
from John Wick, right?
Yeah, but who is he?
He's the mythical creature that comes out to scare people.
Yes, but technically speaking, I'm quoting John Wick when I say this.
Yeah.
So someone said, "Is he the boogeyman?" No, he's the guy you call to scare the boogeyman.
Scare the boogeyman. So in the context of our industry, then, if you're the guy who scares the boogeyman, would the boogeyman be the FDA?
I hope not. I hope we're all working cohesively.
So who is the boogeyman? Then there's two sets of people in this space. Is what I noticed. There's people that say there's no boogeyman at all, and then there's people that always shift the boogeyman to someone else.
So here's my position. I think my boogeyman is always the guy who's against my clients, and we've got to decide it as. So if I'm representing a sponsor, site CRO. If I'm representing the site, sponsor CRO. Oof. If it's the CRO, it's two different boogeymen on either side. It all comes down to what I'm doing and for whom.
But so your role shifts as well. Your role as Baba Yaga shifts.
Baba Yaga shifts. Having said that, now the question is, what do you do when you identify the boogeyman? Do you go in there 100% force, or do you go, you know what? It's time to just negotiate and get to a place that makes sense for everyone. So that's the conversation.
Well, it seems like, and this is what our topic's going to be like today, and I know you have a hard stop, and those are great, man, because that keeps us focused.
Yeah.
The FDA is everyone's favorite boogeyman lately.
Okay.
Especially this new administration. They get zero love from LinkedIn, very little love from X. Mainly because everyone says this is not political, but then everyone basically hates them because of politics. So I'm just looking at some of the things they've done, some of the things they've said, and I'm looking at it like, tell me how this is a bad thing. Like some of these things, like the priority vouchers, United States voucher thing came out yesterday. They're going to shorten the timelines for reviews from a year to 1 to 2 months. If you have certain characteristics that meet U.S. national interest, which I don't know, is somewhat vague, but they did have some bullet points there. So, like today's episode is just going to go through the good, the bad, the ugly opinions, really. But we have some stats from the internet of what we have so far.
You have to trust those.
You got to try. I mean, if you can't trust that, where are you going to get your info from?
Except unless it's like COVID information, then you don't trust that.
Correct. Or then you don't even talk about it because you can get banned from LinkedIn, especially LinkedIn. Reid Hoffman owns it, and you know he's in bed with Bill Gates. Everybody knows this, right?
I don't know this, to be clear, but I'm hanging out to dry on this one. I'm not going down your conspiracy theory routes.
I'll go down. I mean, I'm happy to discuss those. I don't believe these narratives, but they're narratives that exist.
Is this approved by Patient A? Is this approved by Patient A?
This is a Patient A sponsored live. Do you like this shirt, man? I gotta get you.
Yeah, I like it.
So at our
Especially one of our world PA stands for Pennsylvania.
You like that? Yeah, no, Patient Ace, guys. Everybody, listen. This is site-centric recruitment tool, and we got some nice surprises coming out. And shout out to our first employee, really our first real employee, Alexis Reese, who's working diligently now for us.
What does Patient Ace do?
Patient recruitment for sites. So it puts the patient recruitment campaigns at the site's control, and everything from how much you want to spend a day to how you want to automate the leads to come through to letting patients schedule themselves for pre-screening visits. Really automates workflows when it comes to patient recruitment.
Okay.
I'm waiting for you to tell me how some of it's illegal, but you know what? We're not there yet as far as budgets are concerned, Darshan.
I don't know enough about it, so I can't tell you. I know a bunch of
I
things that
know.
people.
The more you
Oh,
learn, the less you're gonna like with the
exactly.
compliance side. I know. You're Baba Yaga, man.
Well, do you use texting?
Yes.
Okay, so if you use texting, look up this law called TCPA.
I know. We did a whole pod on this. Well, we
There
did
we go.
a segment of
Okay,
a podcast on this.
okay. Do you
Ronik
use
is
email?
aware. Ronik is aware.
Good.
Do we use email? No. We can, but it's
Yeah.
mainly text.
Okay. Yeah. Look up canned spam just so you have it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you need to look up do not call lists.
Yep.
And you need to look at the federal and the state versions. And then
Yeah.
you need to look at how all of that ties into your um, email marketing, which I know you're saying you don't do, but gonna have if people come to your website and people get tracked, whether it's cookies or otherwise, it's the greatest number of lawsuits allegedly are now happening in this space, which is pixel tracking.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
No
yeah,
wonder. No wonder costs keep going up in our space, man. Just look at all
it's
these
not just our
regulations.
space. It's actually everything. It's happening across the country on all types of issues because state laws in many cases do not allow you to track people, and
Mm-hmm.
it got a bunch of lawyers got together and decided that they're going to target companies that don't disclose this appropriately in their terms of use and privacy terms.
Yeah, we love them attorneys. Those are they're you guys do amazing work. Listen,
Sarcasm.
Darshan, check this out,
Sarcasm.
man. Staff morale at the FDA,
Yeah.
recusal, recuse your favorite, right? The FDA has been accused of revolving door between industry and pharma. I don't know if it's good or bad. I mean, I understand both sides. You have to have the experts. Like if there's
Mhm.
not a marketplace of experts
Mhm.
that you can draw upon, you're not really getting the full picture. But the other side of it is, hey, it's potential conflict of interest. So since Macri took office, around 600 FDA reviewers, which is almost 25% of the review staff, recused themselves from industry work. Right. So
Mhm.
this is maybe
This is new to me. I don't
more.
know what that means. I don't know what the word recused from industry work means.
It means you're not like if you have to disclose like, hey, I'm working for the FDA internally, and like I'm interviewing with pharma on the side, or maybe.
That's not what recusal means.
So what's the
That's
what's
disclosure. So recusal usually means, so for example, when you're a judge and you have
yeah,
conflict of interest. So let's say you have a client who, let's take you're talking about, say, a chief justice, right, or a justice in the
right,
Supreme Court,
or FDA
and
reviewer? Let's go FDA reviewer.
sure. So if they worked on the approval of the product,
Uh,
let me talk about it in the context of lawyers, and then
okay,
that's why I'm confused about how you apply it to
okay, okay,
FDA.
okay.
So let's say you work for law firm X, and law firm X fought on behalf of X company, of Y company, right? You represented Y company, and now you then got promoted, you became a federal court judge, you became a judge of some kind. Now you have an obvious interest in making sure that that lawyer, that case gets a better result for your potential client. So you'll recuse yourself, saying, "I have a bias. I don't want anyone to be prejudiced because of my bias. I am not going to oversee this particular case." So you're recusing yourself from that case. I don't know how that applies in the context of the FDA. Do you go if you were working previously at another company, you can say I'm going to recuse myself from overseeing work, but that's not what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that actually mean here? I don't understand fully.
I think in the bottom line means they can't necessarily be involved in the review process of certain companies.
But that's not recusal. That's not a recusal to the FDA. That would be when you're inside the company, but that doesn't mean anything. Why would you recuse yourself before you work for the company?
Right. Yeah, well, I've seen this post here from Stat News.
Okay. You want to
Uh,
share it up? Let's see what
I
it
would
says.
share the screen, but there's a paywall, so it's not really helpful. But
Okay.
maybe you can get some. Maybe you can like see through the. This is what we have you on to see through the play around with the puzzle pieces. So, HHS Secretary RFK rallied against what he sees as a revolving door.
Right.
Scores
Yep.
of FDA employees are searching for an exit from an agency in turmoil, particularly staff members tasked with reviewing drug applications.
Sure.
According to interviews with former industry recruiters, many of those joining the exodus were protected from the layoffs that hit the agency earlier, but their work environment has become morose. Wow.
Oh,
And
okay. So they recused themselves because they're applying to those jobs. So they're saying, if I get that job, I don't want to be in that scenario where I have a conflict.
okay, there you go. There you go.
So
it speaks to the
that's a weird
morale.
thing. I find that
Yeah.
a weird thing to do because you may not get the job. In fact, 600 people, you're not going to get that job that easily.
Right. So you're basically like career suicide at this point with the FDA.
Yeah.
If
On
you
both
do
sides.
that. Yeah.
Well,
So I think one of the things Macri wanted to bring was more like better morality there after I don't think the layoffs were his fault. He just inherited that mess. You know, his
sure.
boss and Doge were kind of in
So
charge
are
of
you
that.
agreeing that was a mess?
It could have been handled a lot better. Yeah, I'm not necessarily a fan of 90% slashing of everything,
Of
basically.
your friend Elon, really? I'm surprised by this.
No, yeah, he's not my friend, but yeah.
I thought
No,
Elon, you hang out on the weekends. He comes to Mexico with you.
Listen, I appreciate the radical actions in certain instances, but I've come out against, especially what they did at the NIH when patients were involved in their lives. Like there was patients taken out off of trials, life-saving trials, possibly in some cases. So you don't do that, but I mean,
but that was still approved by Trump. You okay with that?
yeah, not everything he does I'm okay with. No, believe it or not.
I'm just checking. I'm just making sure. Just making sure.
Not everything, but the move away from status quo of just letting things get worse, although big beautiful bills I'm not a fan of either. It kind of goes against the whole premise of what Doge was about. Kind of makes it negligible, really. Unless they could amend the bill somehow, which doesn't seem like it will be. So basically we're at the same place we were before, but with a
shittier administration right now in terms of like there's fewer people.
Yeah, but there's something to be said about this new leadership. So Macri and Prasad, I'm a fan. I mean, unless I'm missing something,
I don't have a problem with either of them because I think they're unproven entities. You can't have a problem with an unproven entity. I think.
Well, many do.
No, I think what people have a problem with is unproven entities coming in and making wholesale changes without knowing what they're walking into. So I'm not one of those people who's going to root against the country. Like that's stupid. Why would you root against? You're rooting against yourself. That's stupid. However,
well, there's the country, but then there's even something less. Yeah, there's even less patriotic thing of just rooting for your industry, right, as a whole. And you definitely don't root against your industry either if you work in it.
Yeah, the problem is, how do you know that we can deliver on this? And again, I hope they can. There's no reason not to hope. If you can bring shortened timelines to like 1 to 2 months instead of the 1 year, I'd be surprised if anyone goes, yeah, you know what, I don't want that to happen. That'd be stupid.
Well,
but
critics are saying it's political favoritism, even though there's nothing about politics in that.
No, but I mean, if the commissioner gets to unilaterally decide what counts as national interest, that is a form of political favoritism. So there's just a risk of more gamesmanship. Now we might find out that those criteria aren't out yet. These are still being decided, negotiated. That's what PDUFA is for. Blah blah blah. But I think that there's too much misunderstanding from too many people who don't understand the industry. For example, you were just like, oh, look, industry has too much control of the FDA. They don't. The FDA literally doesn't, tells the industry to, excuse me, fuck off. And they should. That's exactly their job. Right. But the concern I have is people point to the PDUFA amounts and go, see how much money industry's paying. Yeah, it's like paying the driver's license, like paying the DMV.
Right.
That does not mean that the DMV goes, I'm going to pass you because you gave me money. just means I need that to function.
Of course. That's the fees that they pay. I'm in the middle of this with a stock I own. It's like 7 figures was the fee to go through this process. Just the approval process, not the trials itself, just
Correct.
what the FDA fees are.
Right.
So I think what Macri and them are doing for morale is an attempt to stabilize that inner tension with the staff.
How are they stabilizing it, though? What do you think is happening in terms of stabilizing?
I think it starts at the top with clearly communicating, like via podcasts, what they're doing to the public.
That's transparency, you mean?
Transparency. That's no, I know, but it trickles down into workforce morale, because if the public hates you, if the public hates your agency, and you tell people, you don't think the FDA gets hate?
I think the FDA gets hate, but FDA gets a lot of love as well.
Love from who?
From
people like me and you.
No, I mean, people who understand the agency give love to the agency. People who hate are always going to hate. That's just what.
Sure.
You can't.
I think the majority of the Americans greatly distrust the FDA.
I would strongly disagree with that. I think the majority of Americans don't give a shit about the FDA. I think a minority of Americans love the FDA and a minority of Americans distrust the FDA. I would argue that the minority of Americans who distrust the FDA don't understand what the FDA does at all. That opinion just gets ignored. Like,
I disagree, but that's not important.
Okay. That's no. To me, if they don't, you can't hate something that you don't understand. Then that's just coming from a place of ignorance.
They can still hate it.
No, absolutely. You can absolutely hate it. The question is it coming from a place of I can do things to improve it? No, it's coming from a place of I don't know what I'm talking about. So okay, then I get to ignore your opinion. Your opinion is not valid or grounded in facts.
Right.
So it can't fix something if you're not going to do the education to learn along with it. On the other hand, if there are, for example, let's say the argument is we need faster timelines. What COVID demonstrated with the vaccines was that you can show faster timelines. So let's be clear about that.
You can do anything, yeah.
Given enough money, given enough resources, yes, you can absolutely do the timelines the way they're talking about. The question, however, is there anything outside COVID where hundreds of thousands of people are dying and you have to show efficacy, you have to show safety? That level of national interest, is there anything that rises to that level? I don't know of anything right now. I welcome those opportunities, but I'd be surprised if anything rises to that level, because you're literally going, everything else, you're just going to have to wait. This is the only priority.
Some would argue rare disease.
I would argue that that's not going to rise to that same level. Not because it shouldn't, but because, again, there is risk and there's numbers. In this case, COVID was high risk, high numbers. Diabetes is lower risk, high numbers. And rare disease go ahead.
Rare genetic disorder is like 15 million Americans.
Sure.
So that's what, 5% of the country? I think that's 5% of the country.
Yeah, but you're talking about NORD, but that's not one disease state.
Right, rare genetic disorders, which is what I think they're trying to do. Like I
welcome it. Let's be clear. I'm all for it. The question is, can you do this at scale? Because every disease state will be.
That's what they've asked. That's what they asked at that roundtable last month, or actually this month, on June 5th. They did the cell and gene therapy roundtable. Did you were you able to watch that? I expect you to be there. Forget about watching it. How are you not actually there? You're Baba Yaga, man. You could have scared half of the people.
They don't ask me for my opinion on these things.
That's a shame.
I know, right? I was almost, someone actually gave a crap about me at one point, but I don't think anymore, so it's fine.
Well, the main issue there was, like I said, 15 million Americans, and I think it's half of them are children, live with the rare genetic disorders, and something like 100 gene therapy programs have been canceled since 2023 due to financial, not scientific barriers. So,
do you know what some of those include?
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, we work in the space. Like, it's not cheap to do these things. It's not
100%. The,
even to produce the IP.
between the NIH funding being slashed and
Yeah,
the regulatory bodies basically losing the people who were overseeing that, which happened really in the last 6 months.
right.
So the financial pressures on these companies change because no one wants to fund uncertainty.
Yep.
What was guaranteed to take, or what was likely to take 30 months is now looking at a 60, 80, 90-month timeline because we simply don't know.
But did you see Lilly acquiring Verve yesterday?
I
The
didn't
high
see that.
cholesterol. That's the CRISPR, one of the CRISPR companies, the high cholesterol one, which is, in my opinion, the riskiest one. If you're
Okay.
looking at the North Star of this administration, Prasad's already said, why would we want a genetic therapy for something we have pills for? His own quote. And Lilly, that if I were a pharma company, Verve would not be the CRISPR company I would look at. But Lilly's has a strategic acquisition because they're into metabolic, of course. So they saw some potential there. I think they paid several billion for it, which is something in phase 1. It's not even like anywhere close to being near approval. But this was a good thing, a good signal for the other CRISPR stuff. Antelia, which is doing like beta thalassemia and HAE, hereditary angioedema. I think don't quote me on that, but there's a lot of interesting things going on with CRISPR that I do think we are in the decade where we finally see some potential there, maybe coming to market. We saw with baby KJ last time we did this pod. Baby KJ was cured from a rare disease because of CRISPR. And so this administration seems very pro gene therapy. And that I think that council, that was one of their first ones they did after the infant formula, after some of the food stuff. They did gene therapy. That shows you, I think, their priorities, in my opinion.
Well, my issue is I don't understand the argument of going, I'm pro gene therapy but anti mRNA. I don't understand the difference. How does that work?
So are they the same thing?
They're in the same genre. That's how
So is
genetics
the
work.
COVID vaccine gene therapy?
It's a type of gene therapy. It's not, you're not injecting into the cells, but you are affecting the cells to make that work.
Oh,
Yeah.
but they told us it wasn't gene therapy.
Who said that?
So it goes back to the mistrust.
How?
This goes back to the
Who's
mistrust.
the they? Who's the they here?
The CDC and the powers that be, when they were encouraging everyone to get vaccinated, said, no, this is not a gene therapy. That's a myth.
So
You know.
I genuinely don't. I'm not following. I don't know what you're latching onto, so I can't.
Okay,
really
when COVID vaccine was
you want to
fast
show me?
tracked,
Like, why don't you show me the thing? It's to me,
I'm
it's
not gonna
all
find it
genetic.
in like 2 minutes. We got way more talking points to get through.
Okay.
I'm just showing you an anecdotal example.
No, to me, you're talking biologics. The moment you're talking biologics, you're on the same world. I don't understand the logic of saying we're going to, and this is like technology is widely known.
I literally just said this is a pro CRISPR gene therapy
Sure.
admin, and you said,
To
yeah,
me-
it's strange how they
Yeah.
are anti-mRNA vaccine if they're
Yeah.
pro.
I would agree with that
therapy.
statement that I made. Yeah.
The distrust
agree
of
with
a
that.
lot of Americans were, I'm kind of uncomfortable taking something that's like technically a gene therapy vaccine, but everyone's telling me it's not and it's okay.
Who's that everyone? I'm not sure.
CDC, the media, the powers that be that were encouraging people to get vaccinated. Every podcast we bring up this topic, man. Like
We can let it go. We don't have to go down this path.
I mean, we could just agree it was handled wrong. I think they could have been more
No,
transparent.
that part that was handled wrong for sure. And I think the part that was handled wrong, I would argue, and I'll say this, to me, I guess I come at it from more of a court's perspective, which is you can't stop people from disagreeing with your position. To me, that was wrong. And the
but
court
it's just it's a good example.
But
it's a good example.
But I think it goes to, so I'm okay with saying shutting down of the First Amendment and not allowing people to have free speech was an issue. I would agree 100% with that. On the other hand, I would strongly disagree that the science itself was under question, or that the technology itself is unproven, or that the technology possesses any unusual dangers, or that the vaccine safety or efficacy was unproven. All of those to me is
And I'm
pushing
more or
it.
less there with you. I just think from the North Star of the distrust came around the fact that, well, this is a little bit different. This is a new paradigm for vaccines. And you just said, well, how could they be pro CRISPR and gene therapy and anti mRNA? And it's like, you're a double educated, like dual doctor, and you still get the two things kind of in the same bucket.
I would absolutely throw them in the same bucket. I think they're slightly different technologies. And let's be clear, I'm not a biologics expert, but I would say that they're in the same genre because they're biologics and the way there are different ways you modify genes. And
Right. And Joe Sixpack kind of intuitively felt the same thing, but Joe Sixpack was told,
you don't know. On this. Joe Sixpack should not be opining on this.
But he kind of is digging in the same holes that you are, who are qualified to opine on this.
But do you realize that I am literally qualified to opine on this, and I'm going, I don't know what I'm talking about. I will shut the fuck up.
And that's respect. And then Joe Sixpack doesn't go that far. He just says, I'm going to let them figure it out, but I'm not doing it.
And let other people die for it.
Yeah. That's what they're saying.
That's where the problem lies.
And I think they had a roundtable. I think they had a vaccine roundtable too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm not really trusting a vaccine roundtable from this administration for now.
And the crazy part of all of this, they literally just approved Moderna. I think it was RSV vaccine.
I think it's all that. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're asking them,
they shut down $600 million in funding to Moderna. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. That is, to me, that's fair game, depending on what's happening there. Yeah. That's totally fair game. Like you as an administration go, that's not where I want to spend my money. Totally respectful. But if that is a commitment you made, backing out of those commitments is a problem.
Sure.
If you've made, because you're now affecting people's lives. To me, those are the issues you've got. Not so much I'm not going to fund more of this because that's just not where my priorities lie. That's fair.
Sure. But they approved. Like I would have bet everything I had shorted that, and that RSV vax got approved. So, like these guys are not. They're grounded, I think, still in science. And everyone wants to politicize it, but I mean that drug got approved. It goes against their philosophy, but they still approved it, and they must have seen some benefit from it.
Now the question
you can argue it's working the way it's meant to be, apolitical. Let the science dictate.
Is the science dictating?
Did they just approve something they're philosophically against?
That's one indication. I'm not disagreeing on that part.
Well, yeah, they've only been around for like 3 months. These people, how many drugs are they going to approve?
I'm agreeing with you on that.
Okay.
What I'm really commenting on is the public statements. What are the public statements saying? So you're the one who's talking about transparency and listen to what they're saying. They are very clear about which direction they're going. As you just put it, you would have bet money that they wouldn't have approved it. I think Moderna was as surprised as you were. So the question becomes, can you get true science to apply right now? And if you can, I'm all for it. Mm-hmm. The question is, and here's the thing. I remember Prasad Vinay coming out on Twitter in 2015. I think it was 2014, 2015. I remember chatting with him on Twitter at that time. And he's a smart guy.
Man, you gotta like that. You gotta try to get this guy on the pod, man.
Dude, that was like decades ago. He probably doesn't even know my name at this point. But the guy was a smart guy. The guy is a smart guy. And what I liked about him is that he's going, you know what? I'm not afraid to touch the sacred cow and go, I don't, just because you consider it valuable doesn't mean we shouldn't challenge it. I respect the crap out of that.
Yeah.
Having said that, not every sacred cow needs to be touched just because it's sacred. I feel like we're now in a world where if it's a sacred cow, we're gonna kill it. Like, calm down.
Well, I think that's
where Doge went, and that's where I feel RFK is going, and that's where I feel some of the administration is going. Now, I'd love to be wrong on all of it, because how do I benefit by the country doing badly? That would be stupid.
Right. Yeah, we have to root for the country. I think it's a response to the distrust many Americans felt.
But they aren't qualified. It's me distrusting how an architect built a building. Like, shut
But
the
at
fuck
the end
up.
of the day, like they work for you, the citizens, right?
The
They don't work
architect does?
for the FDA.
No,
Works for the citizens.
absolutely. So whoever
Yeah.
qualifies architect should keep that in mind. And yeah,
I mean that. I think that's the fundamental difference. Is you believe you required to have
you should be qualified to
well-educated
opine. Yes, yes.
well-educated opinions, whereas the majority of Americans are not well-educated in most of these verticals they opine on. So you're saying, well, for those ones, ignore their opinion because they
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
count. Yeah,
Absolutely, I agree with that.
I'm philosophically opposed because even if you're not well-educated enough to have a valid opinion, you still have an opinion, and you should at least be considered.
So the opinion of someone who's not qualified to have an opinion is basically moved by the winds, by the political winds, by the
Yeah,
winds of media,
and that's
which
the
move it.
lever, that's the mechanism that
Right.
people then manipulate in one way or another.
Correct, which is why I have an issue with it, because your opinion is not grounded in facts.
That's
Your
fair.
opinion is grounded on whoever's telling you your opinion should be, or
Yeah,
whatever your
yeah.
opinion should be. So I can't use your opinion to make policies. I can't use your opinion. Now, for example,
No, you're not going to make policy necessarily, but it doesn't mean you won't
we
look
are.
at something.
So that's an
You will
educational
look
campaign.
first.
Yeah,
Yeah, you will look first. Sure, sure. And this is back to why they're doing what they're doing, like the glass wall, the transparency, the fact that they have a publicly facing podcast now. The first few episodes were about infant formula and talcum powder, which I think most Americans can understand. Then they got into food dyes, which I think most Americans can understand. The drug stuff gets a little more complex. And so they save that mainly for industry. But yeah. Deanna Nicole says, so the population's opinion in idiocracy you would support. I would support looking into it. If the vast majority of people are looking in one direction saying, hey, I don't know everything that's going on here, but I kind of trust you, that you do. I want you to look on my behalf and please tell me
They
if it's
did. They did, and they approved it. And now you're saying I
I
don't like
know
your
they
approval.
approved it. No, I didn't say that. They approved the
No, no, not
RSV.
you. I mean, not. I mean, I don't
Oh,
mean.
sure,
I mean,
sure.
your Sixpack.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. With
There's
them
something
looking on your
fundamentally
behalf.
wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with looking.
But they did. They did and approved it. You're saying I don't like that you approved it because Joe Sixpack, who doesn't know what he's talking about, should have a say in something he doesn't understand.
Wait, so what are we talking about? The actual
I think we're
COVID
talking in
vaccine?
general. No,
Yeah,
we're
we're
talking
talking in general. Like the overall philosophy of the FDA. The
no, we were
cuts.
talking. I don't even know if we were talking about the FDA specifically. I think we were just talking in general about. Yeah,
Food dyes is a perfect one. You don't need to really understand it.
so food dyes. The reason I'm not against food dyes is because I think
Yeah.
other agencies have looked into it, and I think the FDA was behind on that topic. So I think red dye was the one that they went after.
Yeah,
I think it's banned in multiple countries.
Same thing with baby powder, talcum.
I don't know about that one. I don't know enough about talcum powder.
They did a whole roundtable on that one. I didn't watch that one though. I watched the gene therapy one.
Yeah.
Plants love electrolytes. I love electrolytes too.
Yeah, her point is exactly that. That's not how things work. You can't just go plants love electrolytes. Now,
sure.
I don't know enough about plants, and I don't know enough about whether or not they need electrolytes. I imagine her point. She's probably more well versed.
If she's talking about the vaccine panel shakeups, which
no,
just
I don't
occurred,
think she is. No, I think she's
that is directly due to ongoing controversies like myocarditis in young people.
No, I think she's making a comment. At least, again, Diana, feel free to tell us what you're actually talking about. But I think her position is more. Joe Sixpack would argue plants love electrolytes. I'm going to pour freaking Gatorade down the soil just so the plant grows better. Like,
no harm, no foul. You're just wasting money.
I kill the plant, but in the case of a plant, who gives a shit?
I think Joe Sixpack. I think we need to look into that Sixpack he's drinking.
Yeah, that's what we've been saying the whole time. Everyone in the industry has been saying exactly that. We're now waiting for this. This is where the empowered patient has gone too far.
The empowered or the entitled patient?
That's a great distinction.
The e-patient, remember that?
I always thought it was empowered. But
Where's
I like
e-patient Dave when we need
empowered is
him?
good. Empowered is good. Entitled is not. And I think you're pointing out that we're talking about the entitled patient, not the empowered patient. I like that distinction.
I like it too, man. That's why I said it. That's why I brought it up. Okay, you hate this part of what they just did,
Which part?
but AI and the embrace of AI, that the technology and AI. So CBER, which Vinay is in charge of, CDER.
You want to pull up this comment? Whoever LinkedIn user.
LinkedIn user, identify yourself. Myocarditis wasn't detected in trials because even among the highest group, it's so extremely, extremely rare that massive 30K plus subject studies couldn't detect them. I know. I don't know the truth. I don't know the truth. All I'm saying is Joe Sixpack is
but Joe Sixpack can't be the standard.
Yeah, but as the administration has to do something if the majority of people.
But they did. They looked at it and they said it's okay. And now Joe Sixpack, who's unqualified, is coming in and saying we don't like it.
Right.
Joe Sixpack is not qualified to opine on this.
But the new administration has to signal to the public. Macquarie and Prasad's whole thing. Listen, their whole thing is we gotta win the trust of the public back. They said this in their episode 1.
Yeah,
this is clearly one of their.
But who's the one losing the trust of the public? I have a feeling if you start off by saying, "Yes, the untrusting public is right. Let's feed the trolls," because that's what we're doing. We're feeding the trolls.
I think they're doing it in a somewhat smart way.
Really? But by losing so much of the FDA?
They didn't do that. They inherited that.
No.
I'm talking Macquarie and Prasad. I'm not talking what RFK did before.
No, you can't not count RFK. It's only been 6 months. You can't
if you're Macquarie and Prasad, or you inherit this problem, you
then don't call 600 people to go, I'm going to recuse myself. How about that?
Sure. And they brought a lot of them back. You and I.
But by doing what? Dude,
by bringing them back, offering the jobs back. Hey, we overslashed. My bad.
But
you're back.
If you got fired from a job, are you really going, you know what? I guess I'll come back.
Yeah, if an algorithm fired you and then a human being says, "Hey, man, we fucked up."
No, I wouldn't come back because you trust
you're gonna hate on the algorithm over a human. The human's telling you we fucked up.
Yeah, and I'm going, yeah, I don't trust you anymore. The entire.
Okay. You don't trust the algorithm. I'm literally calling you, telling you, "Hey, my bad."
Yeah, but it's still you bad.
Laid off. Yes, I agree. I think a lot of those people would come back. I think that a lot of them did.
I wouldn't. No, I don't know if they did actually. I know that they got
that's another podcast. That's another pod. We ain't getting through half of this shit I had planned. Joe Sixpack is a victim to a massive multi-billion-dollar misinformation campaign, not the FDA's level of scrutiny. I mean, yeah, fair enough. I don't disagree with that. I just think you can't.
You should be listened to.
Yeah, you can't ignore the public's concern, even if they're uneducated.
Again, their concern was addressed.
The reason for the distrust for all these decades.
Their concern and distrust was considered. Here's what should happen.
This era of elitism. No, you don't know enough, so forget you.
No.
More and more distrust.
No. Here's what should have happened and what didn't happen. Okay. What should have happened was Joe Sixpack or whoever goes, I want to see access to what you guys actually approved. Tell me the logic on why you guys approved vaccines, drug X, drug Y, whatever it is. We want more transparency into the approval process. Not, you know what, disapprove things that were already approved. What should have happened is gone, you know what, Joe Sixpack, you want to learn, you want to look at it, you want to have opinions, no problem. Here's the data. You decide what you need to do. We thought it was okay because we made a professional judgment. Sure. For Joe Sixpack, who has no knowledge, to come back and go, do it again. What? Do it again? Why?
Dude. So you're saying Joe Sixpack became entitled?
Exactly.
I'm not necessarily against that idea. I'm the one who said it. I think that this group inherited a near impossible situation and is trying to bring some positive change from it.
No, I think this group has caused a near impossible situation and is now trying to salvage an impossible situation.
Yes, and Diana says we're not saying don't listen. We're saying transparency and evidence on both sides. I agree, and I think
But there's no evidence on Joe Sixpack's side. It's just emotion.
it's just what he hears on Fox News, and then
Yeah, that's not enough.
I know it's not.
And let's be enough. Crackle pop liberal moms who were doing the same thing before Joe Sixpack. That's crazy shit too.
In the late '90s, yeah.
I don't think it was late '90s. I think it was
early 2000s.
Oh, is that when it was?
I remember. Yeah, I remember when that. I mean, I think it started around that time. Okay, so AI and drug review. We're never getting past the let's talk down to them, let's not talk down to them. The whole let them eat cake philosophy of like we're better. We're not getting past that. But let's just move on.
I am more qualified than Joe Sixpack to opine on freaking drug therapies. I'm just putting that out there.
Of course. That's why Joe Sixpack's not on this live stream.
Yeah, Joe Sixpack needs to shut the hell up and let me do my job properly.
Sure, but there's okay, fine. We're not getting past this. Listen. Macri and Prasad, they're trying.
And let's be clear, Macri and Prasad know more than I do about medical stuff. I will defer to them on medical stuff without a doubt. But they're not regulatory experts yet.
So to stay on the vaccine thing then, this is going to have to be a multi-part thing. They said in, I think it was episode 4, the one they did on vaccines.
Dude, are you quoting episodes now?
Yeah, man. I watched I'm telling you, the only ones I didn't watch were the infant formula and the talcum one. They've only done 8 of them so far. It's not that hard to keep up. Come on, man. Where you got to opine on this, you got to watch. How can you opine on this without watching?
No, and that's why I don't. Have you noticed I haven't commented on it at all?
I'm just mad.
No, but I'm serious. I can't opine on it. I absolutely cannot.
So here's what they said. Here's what Prasad said in one of them.
Yeah.
He said, contrary to what people may think, we are not, this new administration, we are not anti-vaccine. Great. They actually demonstrated that with the RSV approval of the mRNA one recently.
Contrary to all the statements being made already, contrary to everything we've said, we're not anti-vaccine. Okay.
Did they not approve an mRNA one?
Did they not say that they're anti-vaccine?
They said they're not. Yeah, they said they're not. They said all we want. We're against this. Let's vaccinate boosters in perpetuity. His exact quote. And he's talking about COVID one. Boosters in perpetuity, we don't think there's enough evidence to support that. If the companies want to push that, they need to do the studies in perpetuity. Which as a site, not bad for me. We'll take more vaccine trials. I know a lot of my colleagues love this. But it does nothing to reduce costs of drugs.
How does it work? I mean, we do that for the flu vaccine anyways, right? So what's the
And he said we're not. What's the evidence? Where's the evidence? He's saying
for what, the flu vaccine
in perpetuity. Yeah.
Okay. So you realize that then he's anti-vaccine, right? At that point,
that's an anti-vax. If you can be not in perpetuity boosters,
but including the flu vaccine, which has really helped a lot of people.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. His own quote, not me. His Prasad, he's the one in charge too. But on the other hand,
I actually trust Prasad. I think he's a smart guy.
It doesn't sound like you do.
No. Let me be clear and on the record. I trust Prasad. I just don't think he
I'm going to send you this clip. All right, come on the show. I will just sit here and drink my yerba mate and watch you and Darshan go back and forth.
I think he's incredibly qualified to talk about the medical stuff. He's not qualified to talk about regulatory.
Okay, so he said, I'm not okay with boosters in perpetuity.
But what is... So, 2 different opinions on that. First of all, why? And if he has good logic behind it, I'm willing to listen to it.
So there's no data.
If there's no data,
the risk-benefit ratio doesn't show that it's worth doing in perpetuity.
Both of those statements, if he can... Hold on. Can we put that ahead?
Yeah, Diana says, but the new data on flu vaccine, can we continue to guess ahead what for? Yeah, he's okay with that. You got to do a study every year. Every year,
but they do a study every year
for flu.
Do you know how that, yeah. So then, he's talking
about COVID booster. The COVID booster.
But you're okay with the flu booster, just to clarify.
No, but the flu, it's not a
Wait,
booster. It's a new
new
formulation. They do
formulation.
actual new study. I've
So how
done
do you
some
think
of these studies.
how do you think the COVID one works then?
Well, I don't know. I've never done a COVID one.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
Well, he said no, it's not.
Why not?
He said it's not.
Oh, and now we're trusting the government? Is that where we are?
Prasad said the one
Oh,
we're
but you're
supposed to trust.
no. Again, I trust the government. Remember, we have this problem all the time. I trust the government.
I don't. You got to be more
Yeah.
skeptical, man.
So which way are you going on this one? You trust the government when it works for you?
I trust the government. Well, I don't know. I mean, if I think it boils down to risk reward.
Okay, what's the risk
Knock
here?
on wood. I
What is the
haven't
risk?
had anything that I needed that I was desperately in need of. Like, I need meds for this right now.
No, but what is the risk here? What is the risk in this context? Let's say COVID, just for
The
argument's
risk
sake.
for COVID,
Yeah.
we don't know long term what it does. You
No, but
just
what
said
is
it
the
was
risk?
gene therapy. You just said it was gene
I
therapy.
said it was biologics. I may have overstepped the gene therapy. However, I would stand as a biologic, so I would argue it's in the same genre.
So the risk is it's uncharted territory for long term use.
It's
In
uncharted.
perpetuity means forever, right?
In perpetuity does mean forever. I will give you that
Okay.
part.
Have we
Yeah.
done studies in perpetuity on these boosters?
For mRNAs, nothing's been. I mean, you can say that for Prozac. After 40,
Correct.
after
But
50 years,
Prozac, listen, I'm depressed. I'm suicidal. I mean, it's worth it for me to take this shit.
so you're saying that the risk benefit has to work out, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
And who gets to make that decision?
Joe Sixpack.
Really?
Joe Sixpack gets to make that decision. He's putting it in his body.
So Joe
That's the
Sixpack.
first principle. The first principles of this argument, and then why you need an FDA in the first place.
Okay.
Is to be like, listen, Joe Sixpack, and first Joe Sixpack has to trust you. Listen, Joe Sixpack, I know you feel this way, but you're actually wrong about this, man. And here's why. We haven't had that kind of
So
FDA.
they should have had, but that's not the FDA's job to convince Joe Sixpack.
Well, these ones are taking that role.
But it's not the FDA's job.
But
just
they're
like
going
the
above
FDA's
and
job is
beyond,
not.
going above and beyond, like a good employee should do.
Okay, hold on. So we're okay with going above and beyond and causing information to be spread. You just don't want. So when they were stopping misinformation, you thought it was too much. But
my YouTube channel was almost deleted in perpetuity, deleted forever because I read peer-reviewed article word for word on my channel.
And
again, that's not stopping misinformation. That's censorship.
No, so I agree with you. So I actually agree with that. So I'm not a fan of censorship in any point.
This video, which I didn't intend to go this route, in 2021 would have been banned. I would have gotten warning letters from YouTube. Your channel's suspended for 2 weeks. If you do it again, if you utter the words mRNA or COVID, we're deleting your channel forever. That's not stopping misinformation. That's censorship. That's censorship. FDA just needs a really great propaganda arm to overcome the Twitterati. Can't see this going wrong. Well, they're trying. They're trying.
I'm trying to pull up this case.
We only got through half of the talking points, man. You didn't even get to opine on AI.
No, you know
they're trying to speed up the drug review process, man.
So there was this case of Aptar versus Department of Health and Human Services. Essentially, there was an FDA statement that said you're not. They were talking about ivermectin. They said you're not a horse, you're not a cow. Seriously, y'all stop it. And
I remember that. Yeah.
And the court came out and said that the FDA had exceeded its authority by posting the tweet stating it amounted to medical advice, which is not what the FDA can do. The court reasoned that the FDA does not have general authority to make pronouncements regarding public health without specific statutory authority. So when you go out there and so I agree with that statement. I agree the court is right. The FDA does not get to have that position, does not get to go tell people what to do from that position. So now
that's never been their job.
Correct. Yeah. So what did you just say they should go out and do to correct misinformation?
To correct misinformation? No, I think they needed to have a more transparent relationship between them and Joe Sixpack, because ultimately that's who
So
they work for.
how would that work by giving Joe Sixpack information, which would
Joe
again
Sixpack, we know you think ivermectin's going to cure everything, but here's what the data shows. It actually doesn't.
Okay. So to quote the court, to quote AI quoting the court, I think I said that right. A U.S. court found that the FDA had exceeded its authority by posting the tweet stating that it amounted to medical advice. That would still be an issue because it would still be giving some kind of medical advice.
Right. So
would
you'd
not be
have to
okay.
toe the line.
No, it's not towing the line. It's exceeding the authority. If you're not okay with the FDA saying you're not a horse, you're not a cow, stop it. You're not okay with going Joe Sixpack, because it's the same exact thing.
Well, it's maybe not the same exact thing.
How? How do you figure?
So ivermectin is not just for animals; it is used on people.
Yeah, in
and
very, very
the FDA was not mentioning that in their tweets.
It was never approved or studied for anything else like in this context. There was no evidence to suggest it worked for anything like that.
There's a difference between giving medical advice and letting Joe Sixpack know that, hey, we're working on your side and this is misinformation. The data shows. Whereas this, and I know you have distrust and you think the FDA works for industry, but we are actually working for you at the end of the day. And this is, I think, what they want to do with their podcasts and with their tweets.
But how is that different from the tweet, "Stop it, y'all"?
I think that one was inflammatory. I mean, you don't just post. That's not talking to Joe Sixpack. That's telling Joe Sixpack. That's telling Joe Sixpack he's a moron for his beliefs. That's not data. That's just, hey, this is
a moron for his beliefs.
This is used for animals, Joe. This is not. I think if they would have framed that in a different way, here's what the data shows.
So now you're saying there's magic words. You have to frame it in a specific way so that every Joe Sixpack in the world, because right now you had an issue with the
what was the actual quote? What was the quote?
The quote was, "You're not a horse. You're not a cow. Seriously, y'all, stop it."
Yeah. So ivermectin was approved for human use. So that's the fact that they're implying it's only for horses and cows. I think the court said this is not.
So I'm not disagreeing. I'm agreeing with the court. I'm agreeing with the court.
Yeah.
But you're actually saying that you should now go out and convince Joe Sixpack.
Yeah.
Which literally is the exact opposite of what you said and agreed with the court on.
No. They need to make this relationship better between the public trust. That's their North Star. That's their North Star.
No, it's not. That is not
letting them know this new administration it is. That's their North Star.
That's exceeding the statutory authority given to it. If Congress wants to go ahead and pass that to be the new North Star, that's fine, but that's not what it is right now.
So they're not allowed to be transparent then?
No, transparency is fine. Giving medical advice is not.
So where is medical advice in, I know you think ivermectin cures everything, but here's what the data shows so far.
That's not medical advice. That's literally medical advice.
That's medical advice.
Yeah.
But making fun of Joe Sixpack by basically trolling him and saying
that's also medical advice. No, that's literally so that the court said it was medical advice and told him to stop it.
Yeah, I don't know, but this FDA wants to win the trust back of the public.
But are they allowed to do that?
I think so.
No, I'm saying the court just said no. I mean, it just doesn't
let them say no to the other stuff, and then they'll stop. They haven't said no so far to any of their 8 episodes. Or their tweets.
So they're not giving specific medical advice in those contexts. Up here, you're talking about a very specific statement to make. So.
Okay, so then leave the ivermectin alone.
Leave the ivermectin alone. Yeah, so that would be
but
the
saying
argument.
Boosters. What about saying we don't believe in boosters in perpetuity? That's medical advice.
I would argue it is.
Well, he just said that and nothing happened.
Because no one sued him on it yet. The court doesn't just respond. They go, "Oh, you know what? You need to stop this as well."
So that I think they're showing that's not going to stop them from being transparent.
So that's the problem. The problem is we're still going to keep doing illegal shit.
Let them,
because we think the court won't stop us, which is causing a constitutional crisis.
And didn't these guys continuously say, like, they're pounding the common sense? Like, we're back to a common sense FDA, back to a common sense communication.
But no one said that. No one said common sense FDA. No one's asked for it. I think everyone recognized the FDA is an expert organization. Their job is to be an expert. Their job is not to go, let's cater to Joe Sixpack's dumbass theory.
How much, you're not going to have data. I don't either.
Yeah.
How much of Trump's victory is attributed to RFK?
Which victory?
Trump's
you
presidency.
mean overall?
Yeah.
Negligible? Personally, I would argue it's probably less than 5%. But okay. I don't know enough.
Yeah, I don't either. I think you'd be about right. Maybe a little more. I think he brought over a lot of Democrats.
Did he? You think?
I think he brought over him.
I'm not. I know you like RFK. I'm not even. It's not that I don't like RFK. I think he's a nice enough guy. I think my issue is he's not qualified. He's a lawyer. I say this as a lawyer. We're not qualified to opine on medical shit. I'm sorry, we're not.
Sure.
I'm a lawyer who has a doctorate in pharmacy. I can assure you I'm not qualified to opine on everything that's medical.
But if you've noticed, RFK has been out of this dialogues. Like, he's not on these podcasts.
Do you really believe that he's not affecting policy he's literally...
I'm sure he is. He was at the roundtable. He was at the HHS gene therapy roundtable.
Exactly.
So was Dr. Oz. So was the guy running the NIH. Can't remember his last name.
Yeah, I forgot.
They were all there.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the blocking and tackling, the
I'm agreeing with
Moderna one, he's out of it. He's not in the way. He approved. Okay, if he is, then he approved an mRNA vaccine.
Yeah, I mean,
he used to write about himself in his book.
No, let's not say he approved it. I think what he did not do is block it. And I think that's a fair statement to make.
I think that's fair then. I mean, if you're not blocking something you're personally against because the data shows that it's, there's some benefit there, then I think.
You agree that RFK is against vaccines, is what you're saying?
I mean, it's hard to say he's not.
Okay, so as long as we're in the same position, I don't know if we're agreeing on fundamental perspectives.
No, it's hard to say he's not. I read the book, The Real Anthony Fauci. You take it with a big grain of salt. Like, I'm pretty much in the middle on this stuff, man. But yeah, it's hard to say he's not anti-vaccine. But it doesn't mean the people he put in place are, because they've said they're not. And they're showing they're not.
And I would believe that they aren't. But I do think that if your boss's boss's boss is anti-vaccines, you're going to go out there going, you know what, let's go for more vaccines.
I mean, they just did. And they're only 3 months in, or 4 months in. They approved one of the biggest villains, quote unquote, of the whole COVID era, which was Moderna. Like Joe Sixpack, if Joe Sixpack didn't know anything before COVID, he knows Pfizer and Moderna. Right? Would you not agree with that?
We're 10 minutes over time, by the way.
We didn't get through any of my talking points, man. But you're one of the only ones in the industry willing to discuss these things. I bring on anyone else, they're dancing around everything. Oh,
you're talking not to dance around and just speak, and I will regret this afterwards.
Just speak, man. It doesn't mean you believe everything Joe Sixpack says. I don't agree with Joe Sixpack. I just think Joe Sixpack shouldn't be ignored because there's 100 million of him and her out there.
That's not how. That's why Joe Sixpack trusts experts to make decisions, because Joe Sixpack.
They don't trust. That trust is gone.
And
that trust has been gone for a long time.
Then Joe Sixpack, go learn shit yourself.
Well, this group's saying we're going to try to win some of that trust back. While still not blocking science, which so far, so good.
And as we just discussed, this is not their job. They're exceeding the authority of that. If they do that.
Tomato, man. And what one judge ruled on some tweet, which, let's face it, man, that tweet was very inflammatory. That's not a tweet, let me educate you. That's a tweet of, you're a dumbass.
No, but I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing that they should not have made that tweet.
But that's different.
But then it applies across the board.
But that's a different statement than Vinay at minute 15:12 of a 40-minute podcast saying, I don't believe in boosters in perpetuity.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. I'm not sure it is. Now, if he said, I don't believe, it's a different discussion.
He said, I don't.
You should not use boosters in perpetuity. That's a different statement.
Yeah, he said,
I don't know what the statement is.
Yeah, he said, I don't.
Opinion is different, but Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
And I think
We
if
do
that
what we call
FDA tweet came out and said, "You are not a horse," signed FDA intern that runs Twitter, I don't think the judge would have had.
probably would have had the same issue because it's coming from the FDA officially.
Maybe. All right. Tomato, tomato. We
Okay.
didn't get anywhere, man, but we maybe we entertained the masses.
We did entertain the masses. This is all about this is a coliseum, and
And
we are the
we're
gladiators.
losing followers by the minute. Sorry,
Anyways.
Ronick, for wearing the Patient A shirt on this highly inflammatory podcast. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Go follow Darshan right now.